Hello everybody, my name is Thomas and today I will be your pilot slash co-pilot as I do a solo playthrough of some of the unofficial solo modes for Sky Team. I'm very excited for this video because I primarily play solo games and Sky Team is one of my current favorite games. I picked this up at Gen Con last year and it is one that stayed at the top of my favorite games because it's a very fun game. It is a two-player only cooperative dice rolling game where you're working together trying to land a plane. One person playing as the pilot, which is indicated by the blue, and then one person as the co-pilot, which is the orange. And there's different maps, there's different difficulties, different modules. It's very thematic. You have steering and engines and landing gear to worry about, and you got planes in your way. It's great. I love this game. And so what I'm gonna be doing today is trying through a couple of the fan-made unofficial solo modes for this game. So today I'm going to be playing through 3 different unofficial solo modes made for Sky Team. I found these all on Board Game Geek and I will have them linked below. But before I get into those, let me do a real quick rules explanation for Sky Team for those of you who don't know how to play it. So like I said earlier, Sky Team is a 2-player only cooperative dice rolling game where you're trying to land a plane. It takes place over the course of several rounds. You have this altitude meter that's going off the screen, but it goes all the way down to 1, and then you got the plane, and then that indicates your last round. And this goes down at the end of each round, indicating your rounds. You have 7 rounds total. Each round kind of has 3 different parts. You have the first part, which is called the strategy phase, where you're allowed to discuss with whoever you're playing with about what you want to accomplish this round. And you do that during the strategy phase because then during the main phase, the dice placement phase, when you're rolling and placing your dice, you're not really supposed to communicate, at least strategy-wise, about what you're doing. You're so in the zone, things are happening so fast that there's no time to communicate. You just have to communicate through your actions. The final phase of the round is just the end of turn phase where you're just kind of doing some cleanup and preparing for the next round. So the main bulk of the game takes place during dice placement. And how does that work? Well, each player will have a little screen that they're rolling their dice behind, so it's secretive. They roll their 4 dice. You look at the round indicator to see the arrow and the color indicating who goes first. You then just go back and forth, taking your dice and placing them on the board. And I'll real quick go over what some of the different spots do. Before I go over the spots, I'll just real quick explain how you win the game. And you win the game by getting to the airport, which is at the end of this strip. Once again, it's going off the screen, not super important though, but you need to get to the airport. You need to make sure your speed is less than your brakes. You need to have all the landing gear and flaps out and ready to go. You need to be level and there needs to be no planes on the airway. So I'll explain how you actually accomplish some of those things. All right, so next on the sides, the pilot has the landing gear and the co-pilot has the flaps. These both need to be fully done before the end of the last round. There are numbers indicating what dice can be placed on this. So this top spot for the pilot needs a 1 or a 2. When you place a dice there, you flip the little slider, which I think is really cool. And then anytime you do one of these or one of these, you move the indicator forward 1 as this blue and orange indicator are called your aerodynamic meters. And that just means as you're deploying the landing gear, as you're deploying the flaps, you're not as aerodynamic and it's a lot harder to move. And that actually does affect your speed. What's nice about the pilots is they only have 3 to do. They can do theirs in any order. The co-pilot for the flaps, they have to be done in order. And yeah, they have 1 more to do. So then moving right along in the middle here is the speed. And this is one of the other ones that you have to do every round. Someone places a dice, someone else places the dice, you add up the sum of the 2, and then you look at these 2 aerodynamic markers to see how far you move. If your total speed is below the blue marker, you don't move at all. If it's between the blue and the orange, you move 1 space, like that. And then if it's above the orange, you'd move 2 spaces. So you'd move 1 and then 2. In this case, though, that would be bad because you can have planes in your airspace like this, and that's fine. But if you were to try to move another, that's one way you can lose the game. Moving right along, we got the brakes down here. This is the pilot's responsibility, and they have to place the numbers in order to raise the brake value. The last round, your total speed needs to be less than the red marker, so you need to at least do the brakes once, but ideally, the more the better. The final spot is the coffee spot, where you can call in some coffee. You can place any dice, any number on there, and that gets you a coffee. And what that'll allow you to do, you can have up to 3, is modify a dice value by plus or minus 1. And what's nice is coffees can stack. So if you really need to change a dice by 2, you got 2 coffees, you're good to go. And that's pretty much the gist of it. After everybody has placed their dice, you do the end of round effect, which is just picking up your dice, going down the altitude meter by 1, and then going for the next round. So the couple ways you can lose the game: if you hit one of these X's for the tilting, you go into a tailspin, you lose the game that way. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, if you run into a plane that's in your airspace, you lose the game that way. The other way is just not completing all of the end game conditions when you get to the airport. One last final little thing to mention is there are these reroll tokens. You start with one, you get one later in the game, and they allow both players to reroll any number of dice they want. That's pretty much the base rules though, and I'll quickly explain the solo modes I'll be playing. So today I'm playing 3 different solo modes, and 2 of them don't really have names, so I kind of just came up with names. For the first one, I came up with the name of the All for One and One for All variant. The second one I'll be playing also didn't have a name, so I'm calling it the 2x4 variant. And the final one does have a name, and it's called the Short Staffed variant. And I will have those all linked in the description for the Board Game Geek post that someone has the rules explained. What I'll be doing today is I'll explain how the variant works, and then I'm going to play through at least one round for each pilot and co-pilot. I'm not going to be playing through full games because I want this video to be kind of short, and I think if I play at least one turn of each, you kind of can get the gist of it. And then at the end, after I play through all 3, I will do a quick final thoughts and review on the different variants. Okay, so let's start with variant number 1, the One for All and All for One variant. Like I said, I came up with the name, but I think it's a pretty good name because it kind of tells you how to play the game in the name itself. So how this works is you take all of the dice for one player. Usually I think you just choose whoever the starting player is. You roll them all. You got 4 dice. I would then, blue player starts, so I would place a dice. I place that there. Now it's the orange player's turn. You take 1 dice, and you roll it, and then you place that. That's why it's called the All for One, and then 1 for all the rest of their dice. It kind of works, right? I think it's pretty clever. But that's the gist of it. One thing for a lot of these variants, some of them don't have great ways of how to use the rerolls. I just pretty much play them all as whatever dice I have available to use, those are the ones I can reroll, and that's pretty much it. If I want to reroll all of them, I can. If I want to reroll none of them, I can, but I have to choose and reroll them all at the same time. But yeah, that's really it. You roll all the dice for one player. You use that. As you go to the second player, you roll one of their dice, and then you place the one you roll, and then you go back, and then you keep going back and forth. So I'll reset this real fast, and yeah, we'll give the All for One and One for All variant a shot. Before I hop in here, I will quickly note I am playing on the Hanada airport, which is a little bit more difficult. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th airport. It's got some mountains where you have to manage your tilt properly. It also has these air traffic dice, which when you start in that spot, you roll this dice twice, which I got a 4 and a 4. So that means on spot number 4, I get to add 2 planes. So now there are 4 planes in that spot, making that very difficult. That's all the setup we gotta do, so let's get going. Okay, so blue player starts, so I roll all of them for 1, and then 1 of them for all the other dice. It's pretty clever, right? Okay, so 2, 2, 2, and 1, not great numbers. I'm gonna place the 2 there because that's like a more central value. I gotta do the steering at some point. Now roll the orange dice, and we get a 6. Yeah, that's no good. Can't do anything over there. I don't want to put it, we'll put it on the speed. I think that's okay, because then I got a 2 here I can put in the radio tower. Boom, clear that airplane. Back to co-pilot. We are rolling. We got a 1 this time. Yeah, that's something. I'm going to use that for steering. I'm not going to risk it. So that tilts us 1 towards that way. I still have a 2 and a 1 here. I got to go with the engines at some point. So let's go ahead and do that, because you could be a bit strategic about this, right? So I'm going to place the 1 here. That adds up to 7, which is between the blue and the orange. So we move 1 spot closer. Back to orange. Kind of rolled off the screen, but that was a 1. I'm just going to call in some coffee. It's always a good thing to have on hand. Back to blue. The reason, I kept the 2 because I wanted to clear that plane, but I only have 1 radio, so I'm not cool enough to be dual wielding them. So instead, I'm going to start on the brakes. I could also use this on the landing gear, but the sooner I do that, it bumps up the aerodynamic marker and it makes it really a lot harder to go. So I'm not trying to do that right now. So we got a 6. 6 I genuinely can't use anywhere. I could use it on the radio, but I'm just gonna use it for another coffee. And that sounds good. So that completes the first round. Altitude decreases to 5,000 feet. We pick back up our dice. And we're on to round number 2. So this time, co-pilot starts, so I'll be rolling all of the orange dice first. So I got a 1, a 3, and 2 5s. We get to start here. I'm going to use the 3 because it's kind of good that we're tilting that way because we have some mountains to worry about that are on this side, so that's fine. Let's roll a blue dice. We got a 6. Okay. I don't have much to do there. I'm going to just put that on the engine because we need to go at some point. And let's go with the orange. Let's go ahead and we got a 1, a 5, and a 5. Not great dice. Yeah, we'll use the 1 in the radio tower, but I will use a coffee to change it to a 2 so we can clear out that plane. Now it's back to blue player's turn. They get a 5. What's with all these high numbers? I guess I can use that down here to start working on the landing gears. So that moves that up 1, back to orange. Now the airway is clear, so if I put a 5 here, that's 11 total above the orange marker, so we move 1, 2 spaces, which is good, but we got a lot of planes in our airspace now to worry about, so that's maybe not so good. A 6, what is with all these high numbers? This is not what I need right now. I don't have much to spend this on, so I'm just gonna grab some coffee because I'm a little worried for what's to come. Orange has already done everything they need to do. I can't start on the flaps yet. No one's really in a good range. I'm just gonna brew more coffee. It's maybe a little too soon for all this coffee, but we're winging it. Get it? Because it's a plane. And look at that. We got a 3 blue, so we place that there. We're staying level, and that is that round. So there you go. There is a little brief, simple playthrough of this variant, which once again doesn't really have a name, but I'm calling it the all for one and one for all variant, where you roll all of one player's dice and then you're just rolling 1 dice for all the other dice of the other player. So yeah, I'm gonna quickly reset this and we'll hop to the next solo mode. All right, so that was the first solo mode. Let's get going into the next one. Once again, this one doesn't have a name, so I kind of just came up with a name, and I'm calling this variant the 2x4 solo mode. Starts the same like the last one. You roll all of the dice for 1 player. You place 1. Then when you get to the other player, you roll 2. You will place 1 of them, and then keep the other one to the side. Then they'll go back to the blue. They choose any of these, they place this, it goes back to the orange. They still roll 1, so they pretty much always have 2 to choose from, and 1 kind of carries over until the last round. You know, they would go, and then they would roll, and then they would go, and then they're down to their last one. So that's why it's the 2x4, because 1 is rolling 4, the other is 2, and 4x2 didn't sound as good. So there you go. I'll quickly reset this, and we'll play a couple rounds. All right, so I already rolled the air traffic dice. We have 1 plane on 4 and an extra on this 3 space. So we're gonna get started with the pilot's dice, rolling all of them and placing 1. So we got 2 1s, a 2, and a 4. I wanna start out by trying to clear some of these planes, so I will place the 2 there, clearing that plane away. Orange, we're in the 2x4 variant, so we're rolling 2 dice this time, and we got 2 3s, not bad. I will actually use 1 on the radio to help clear some planes away. I will then use the 4 here for steering because I wanted to tilt a little bit towards the pilot because we have the mountains to worry about. I rolled a 1. Yeah, that's something. The issue is I want to move, so I need a high-ish number, but if I place like a 1 there, that'd be a tailspin. We don't have coffee right now. It's probably the safer bet. I'll place the 3. We tilt a little bit, and that's good. That's good. I wanted to tilt that way. I'm going to use the 1 down here to grab a coffee. Back to the orange player, rolling another dice. Now we have a 1 and a 6 to choose from. Pretty good numbers because I can place the 6 there. Back to the pilot, they have to place on the engine spot. 7 total is between the blue and the orange, so we move 1 space closer. I would have preferred to move more, but that's okay. And we have a 1 left. Could do a couple things. I could put it in the radio tower, coffee it to clear that plane. Could put it here to start the flaps. Could just get some extra coffee. I kind of like the idea of changing it to a 2 with the coffee and clearing out that 1 plane. So there we go. Round 1 done. Going down to 5,000 feet. This time, co-pilot's dice will all be rolled at once, and the pilot's, I'll just set off to the side somewhere over there. So let's get started. Roll these up. We got a 4, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to place the 4 on steering first because I need to keep that pretty much where it's at, so that seems good. The pilot, we're in the 2x4 variant, so we're rolling 2 dice. Got a 1 and a 2. All right. Love that. Not super helpful right now. I'm going to just place the 1 to get some coffee. Then we're back to the co-pilot. There's a lot of planes in the way, but we're going to place a 6 on the engines. Just gun it forward. Next, we're back to the pilot. They rolled a 1. Okay. Really not what I want. A little bit higher numbers for this. That's okay. That's totally fine. We're going to place a 2 there. His total engine is 8, so we move 1 forward, and our tilt is good for going into this mountain space, so we're chilling there. Back to the co-pilot. I got a 4 and a 5 to spend. Not good. All those planes are at 2 spaces away. So for now, I probably just have to get coffee both times. There's not much else I can really do. There's no planes in spot 4. I guess maybe instead of the 5, I'll put the 4 down there, and then that's fine. So back to the pilot, rolling their dice. We got another 1. I just needed some dang high numbers, and clearly that's not going to happen. The game says, nuh-uh. So I'm going to place this here for the landing gear. That's going to affect our aerodynamics, which is fine. 5, I'm going to just get some coffee. Let's max out the coffee. Again, I like the coffees. It's a dice game. Dice have luck. And some luck mitigation is always nice. So now I have to place this up here. Yeah, the issue is I got to spend at least 2 coffees to change the 1 to a 3. So we're still okay. We got 1 coffee left. And that is the end of that round. And then we'd pick these up. And then it would be back to the pilot's turn. So there you go. There is 2 quick turns of this solo mode that I'm calling the 2x4 variant. I will quickly reset this and we'll play through the last one. All right, time for the final solo mode I will be going over today. And this one actually has a name, and it's called the short staffed solo mode. And how it works, it's pretty simple. Is at the beginning of each round, you roll 1 dice for each person. So you got a 2 and a 2, and then you kind of have these just in a hold, right? And then you just go turn by turn, and now it's the pilot's turn first, so you would roll dice for them. So I rolled this, okay, I get a 4, and so now for the pilot, I got this 4 or this 2 to choose from. Okay, I'm gonna place the 4 there. Then on the co-pilot's turn, you roll a dice for them, and you get a 1. So you don't roll all the dice. This is, 1 of 3 variants where you're not rolling all the dice for up front for 1 player. And it kind of combines elements of the 2x4, where you have 2 dice always available to choose from, except for the last round when you're down to just 1. But it gives you a little bit more flexibility, I think. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You just roll 1 for each at the beginning of the round, and then on that person's turn, you just roll 1 more. So you always have 2 to choose from. And then that's pretty much it. So I'll quickly reset this and we'll play through it. All right, I rolled the air traffic dice, and that dice must be loaded because I rolled 4 twice. This spot is just action-packed, but that's fine. Let's get started. So, short staffed, we start by rolling 1 for each, which I'll just place them, in the center there. And then we're on to the pilot's turn, where I get to roll just 1. We got a 5 and a 2 to choose from. I'm gonna help out with the radio. I think that's a good move. And now we are gonna be on to the co-pilot, rolling a dice for them. So now we have a 2 and a 4 to choose from. I'm gonna place the 2 there because, like I said, with the mountains coming up, you want to be a little bit more towards the pilot side. So that's pretty chill, I think. Back to the pilot's turn, rolling the dice for them. I got a 3 and a 5 to work with, and that's pretty perfect because then I can place the 3 there. We tilt 1 towards the pilot, and that's kind of the angle we want to be going through these mountains. So back to the co-pilot, rolling a dice. We get a 1. I might want to try to move and then save that because we can move 2 spots right now because I placed this there. Back to the pilot's turn, I roll dice for them. We got a 3 and a 5 to work from, and that's pretty great because I could place the 5 there, and that moves us 2 spaces. Back to the co-pilot's turn, rolling a dice. They have a 1 and a 3 to choose from, and then I can place the 1 in the radio. That clears our current space, but we still got that next space to worry about, but that's totally fine. Back to the pilot's turn. We both just got 3s left to do something with. So what I think I'll do for the pilot is grab a coffee, and then as the co-pilot spend that coffee, I change this 3 to a 2 and clear out one of the many planes in that space. All the dice have been rolled, so that's it for this first round. Down to 5,000 feet. This time the co-pilot will be first. Let me get all the dice all organized here. And on our way. So we got a 5 and a 6 for our initial rolls. And then the co-pilot goes first, so we get an extra dice for them, which is a 3. I'm going to place the 5 there, because the 3 I want to save for the radio. So then we're on to the pilot's turn, and they have a 4 and a 6 to choose from. Personally, I want to use the 6 to tilt the plane a little bit more this way, because that's a better angle to be at, so we're chilling there. Back to the co-pilot, and they get a 3 and a 6 to choose from. What do I want to do? I guess I do want to keep clearing out stuff there, so I'm going to grab coffee to clear out planes from the airspace. Next turn, hopefully. Back to the pilot. They get double 4s to choose from. We'll just put one of them on the engine. Nothing too crazy. Keep it simple. Back to the co-pilot. Roll another dice. Their options are a 3 and a 4. Well, I think I want to spend the coffee that I got to change that 3 to a 2 to keep clearing planes out of that space. Must just be popping there. Back to the pilot. We have double 4s to work with. Doesn't do much good, if I'm being honest. I'll spend one of them to get some coffee. And then 4 can go over here for the engine. It has to. It's one of the required spots. 8 total is between the 2 markers, so we move 1 space. And then back to the pilot. They just have a 4 left. I could clear plane from this spot. I could start the landing gear. I could get more coffee. Let's clear some extra planes. These planes are going to be a bit of a nuisance, so clear that away. That is the end of that round, so you go down to 4,000 feet and keep going. But there you go. There is a simple walkthrough of the short-staffed solo mode. All right, so there you go. Those are the 3 solo modes that I will be covering today. But I should mention there's plenty of other ones that people have made. I will link a Board Game Geek post that I found found some of these and was kind of trying to see which ones were people's favorite with like a poll. So that was kind of how I decided on some of these. The short-staffed one was a fairly newer one that came out after that. So I'll have everything linked in the description. But needless to say, I was very excited to try some of these because, like I said, I picked up Sky Team last year at Gen Con, and it's been one of my favorite games in my entire collection because I love co-op games. They are by far my favorite type of games. Also, a couple years back, Turing Machine, made by the same people, and Turing Machine is one of my favorite games. I thought it was so cool when it came out, and I still think it is such a neat game. And I love the co-opness of it. So I was very excited to try this, and I think it's a fantastic game. It really is. So I was curious, how does the solo modes play? Is it going to be something I like? Because I feel like you're going to lose a lot of the tension that you would when you play 2-player. And yes, you do lose some of that tension. You lose a lot of that tension, I feel like. But I think solo mode is still a surprisingly fun dice kind of puzzle to figure out and to kind of work through. And I'll quickly say before I get into my thoughts on these solo modes, I think it's great that people made solo modes. If I don't speak too highly of one of them, don't be discouraged. I mean, I think it's great that people are out here making these, and I'm just here to give my opinion on what I think of them. Because at the end of the day, I think people making solo modes and unofficial game modes is great, and they can become an official one at some point. I mean, one of my favorite games, Jump Drive, didn't have a solo mode officially for the longest time. Someone made one on Board Game Geek, and then at some point, the company that makes Jump Drive reached out to make it an official campaign. So, needless to say, everybody that's made a solo mode for this, great job, keep making cool stuff, but I'm gonna give my thoughts on the 3 I played here today. So the first one was the One for All and All for One variant, which I believe in the post that was asking like people's favorites, that was the most played, and I guess people's favorite. And personally, of the 3, that was my least favorite. It started out being my favorite, but then I realized, and I've played this game a lot, but obviously it's a dice game, and it can really just be down to the dice rolls. And that can really affect your playthrough when you only have one dice to choose from for one of the players. And having 4 up front for the first player, I felt like it really didn't balance it out enough that it helped balance the luck. And I felt maybe it was a skill issue on my part, but I felt like it was pretty difficult just rolling and only having 1 dice for one side to work with. Because if you're really banking on a decent number for your last roll, but you have no idea what it's going to be, it can kind of suck. And I've played through that solo mode a couple times, and I had games I lost at the end or way before the end because of just terrible dice rolls that I couldn't really do much to mitigate. So while I think it's a neat solo mode all in all, I think it's my least favorite of the 3. Next is the 2x4 variant, where you're rolling, all of the dice and then 2 dice. I think this is my second favorite. I think I like the idea of having a little bit more dice mitigation with your first, having 2 dice available pretty much to choose from for the, off player, whoever doesn't start. And I think that does help with the dice mitigation. Once again, I don't know if rolling all the dice up front really helps, how much of a difference it makes if compared to the short-staffed one, which I guess I'm alluding to. Short-staffed, I think, is my favorite variant of the 3, because you do need to try to strike a balance with not knowing too much information and all that stuff, because in the game it's a lot of you don't know what the other person has until they play it. So how do you mimic that in the solo mode? And I think the short-staffed one kind of mimics that the best, while also still giving you room for that dice mitigation and dealing with crappy dice rolls. So I think the 2x4 one is great, but personally I think of the 3, short-staffed is my favorite, and I think is the one I would probably personally play going forward. But I've only played these 3 a handful of times each just to kind of test them out. I also tried some other ones to kind of decide on which 3 to play for the video. So if you have a copy of this at home, try these yourself. Let me know. Do you have a favorite of these? Do you have a favorite that's not one of these? Did you like one of these but then modify it? Because there's a lot of discussion on the Board Game Geek posts about what people have tried, and I like doing this but doing this mode but doing with this rule, or handling rerolls this way. So let me know what you think. Have you tried these? Do you have a favorite? Did I not talk about your favorite? Let me know in the comments. But I gotta say, short-staffed is a great one, but I really think you can't go wrong with either 3 of these solo modes. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be greatly appreciated. And until next time, this is your pilot/co-pilot signing off.